Good evening, Brown fans, and welcome to the Gang of Three. My name's Barry. I'm drinking decaf coffee and hoping to be able to spar with these two gentlemen who have joined us today. Good luck, me, Mr. Pete Smith. How you doing, Pete?
All right.
Well, that's good to hear. Lane, how you doing, buddy?
Another happy day in the ghettoplex of society.
That's good to hear, my friend. That is good to hear. I'm glad that you're able to join us. I know that you have some time that you have reserved to speak to an individual in a downtown, darkly lit parking garage to get scoop. That's what I always picture you doing at any rate. So if you have to,
you see me disappear, you'll know what happened. I was either kidnapped or I'm getting the goods.
All right. Well, hopefully the latter. But glad that you could make it here for the time that we got you.
I was worried about myself being kidnapped, but after seeing some interactions that our buddy Pete Smith has had on X over the last couple of days, I'm worried about his health and sanity.
Yeah.
We're one running back away from being a great team. Just one more thing.
Yeah. Big story on the front page, a whole bunch of responses to it in the water cooler. Pete, I'm not going to debate this one with you because I agree with you on your fundamental point, but I'm going to let you have the floor and explain yourself as to why you think Jeremiah Love is not the answer at the number 6 draft position.
He's a great player. Fantastic player. He doesn't block anyone. He doesn't play the wide receiver position. He doesn't play the quarterback position. Doesn't fundamentally improve the Browns in any meaningful way that were the issues that held this team back. The Browns had a good running back. I think part of my frustration with this, and if they're sort of go down, I'm done with Ohio State players. I'm just done because the Browns draft Ohio State players, and everybody can't wait to get rid of them. Now you have Quinshon Judkins, who was good, and 20 minutes later, let's get rid of him. That's part of it. I think Quinshon Judkins was a really good player who had no blocking, no help whatsoever. As I laid out, if you broke it down by running backs who got more than 100 carries last year, he was third in the league in terms of defenders in the box. Number one is Derrick Henry, as you'd expect. But Quinshon Judkins is a rookie. And the reason there were so many defenders in the box is because everybody knew what he could do, and nothing else was proven. They didn't have enough quarterback position. They didn't have enough receiving threats. So they just loaded up the box, and eventually it finally bit them, and he got hurt. But he was good. He was the whole thing. And that was the part that, like, people seem to forget is how instrumental he was in moving the ball early in the year. But part of this whole argument is, well, of course, you can just put Jeremiah Love in the slot. And I broke down the numbers on this. Like, if I steel man this scenario out to the nth degree and say he's going to be Christian McCaffrey, McCaffrey's not in the slot nearly as much as people think he is. And
right.
When he's in the slot, it's usually because the 49ers, in this case now, are in empty, not because they put another running back on the field. And Notre Dame could have done this. They could have said, okay, we'll put Jeremiah Love in the slot and put Jadarian Price in the backfield. They didn't do that. I think in total he was in a non-running back position about like 40 snaps over the last couple of years. But to continue on the McCaffrey element, McCaffrey, Marshall Faulk, Saquon Barkley, you go down the list. What do they all have in common? They were really great players. They were really great for the second team, too. Marshall Faulk was fantastic for those, and then they traded him. Saquon Barkley was drafted to carry the Giants, got to the playoffs once, and then they let him walk in free agency. He goes to a team that built properly, and then he's a 2,000-yard rusher, and they win the Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey is traded from Carolina to the San Francisco 49ers, and yeah, they got a really good return on that. But are you drafting a running back, in this case, Jeremiah Love, to then trade him and get really good return on it, or are you getting him to sort of fix your franchise? And that's the other part. The Browns are going to reshuffle the entire offensive line. unless DeJuan Jones is starting at snap one, the entire unit will be different from last year, and you will not know if they're good. So the idea is certainly not by April. We are hoping that the combination of Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins, and Titus Howard is going to produce 3 starters. We're not sure where they're going to start, but we're hoping it's going to produce 3 starters.
Yeah.
So you could enter the draft, I think, with the thought the Browns are at least might think and hope they're going to get 2 more starters out of this draft. That's not the way to build a successful franchise in terms of putting a running back in harm's way immediately. And we just watched the Raiders do this thing with the 6th pick in the draft. They took Ashton Jeanty. How'd it work out for him? Well, Ashton Jeanty struggled. Everybody's now thinking he stinks. And the Raiders are picking 1st overall because it's a bad way to operate. I didn't include this, but if you're trying to like produce the best scenario, it would be Bijan Robinson. Well, what did the Falcons have when they drafted him? They had Jake Matthews. They had a really good offensive line up front, one of the best guards in football, really good right tackle. They had all these guys in place. If you want to compare it to Nick Chubb, at least they had Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader. You are literally with nothing. And if in this case, Jeremiah Love were to struggle, you are then doing what the Raiders just did, which is obviously they're drafting quarterback, but they also had to pay $27 million for center because they have to fix the mistake they made last year and try to make it work. And all of that's going to lead to you to do what? If Ashton Jeanty is everything the Raiders hope he is, you are paying a running back upwards of $20 million per year on an extension for a non-premium contract. This is why teams get scared away from this. This is why teams don't like doing this. It's a really bad way to build a football team. And it's not going to fix anything. In addition to the fact, it's basically saying Quinshon Judkins is bad and Dylan Sampson was a waste of time, even though both of these players showed significant talent last year.
Well, I think you laid it out there pretty effectively. We've got 200 people watching. No one in the comments is disputing you, Pete. You are there's no one here who can oppose you, apparently, unless it's Lane Atkins. Lane, do you agree with Pete's thesis that Jeremiah Love would be a insufficient pick at number 6?
Well, I would never say insufficient because he's a dynamic and he's talented. The only problem with the Cleveland Browns is that you need talent and a dynamic character at another position, and you already have a running back, and you have a backup running back, and this guy wouldn't come here to be your 3rd running back. So what are you going to do with him? You're gonna cast Jenkins to the side where he gets limited carries, and what about Dylan Sampson, who he's also selected? And I find it, just the redundancy is just incomparable. You need a playmaker, and that comes from the wide receiver position. Okay, I'm not talking about a guy who's a possession receiver, a guy who struggles against better competition. I want a guy, he's squirrely, he's just twitchy, gets open, makes plays, and that's where you're looking at 6. You're either doing that or you're doing a tackle. The best scenario is that if Love's on the board and somebody wants to come and get him, the Browns are going to get an offer because the 6th pick is open season to anybody, but it's going to be costly for anybody to do it.
Right. So I think that we have laid down the gauntlet here. There is no one to oppose Pete. It is hereby remanded that Jeremiah Love should not be the pick for the Cleveland Browns at number 6 at this point.
Well, we're not, this is an X. This isn't an X show. This is the OBR, and we're not sitting here talking all this stuff and posting things because we want people to watch us and follow us and, give us all our glory and, fool people because they put on a persona that's full of shit. We're just telling you what it is in the football sense, and that's just the way it is. And, some people can't accept it. That's just the way it is.
Well, if you want the quality of half-baked views that you get on X, I am here to provide them. And one of the things that I am reacting to today was a report on the radio this morning that Cleveland is leading toward Monroe Freeling at offensive tackles. Multiple sources supposedly said that the offensive tackle is the consistent theme for the Browns. That's fine. That's up for debate. But I see him consistently as a number 6 pick in the mock draft. And Freeling strikes me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lane, as a boom or bust prospect. He's big. He's got scary athletic tools, but he's only played 1 year. He's got a lot to learn. Warhop, I'm sure, could coach him up as well as anybody can coach him up. But to me, he's a guy who needs a little bit of time to develop. And there's a possibility that he's not the guy. And to me, I want to play a little bit safer with that number 6 pick. And so Spencer Fanow, I mean, he's not a guaranteed thing either, with his mutated short arms or whatever people complaining about. But I just don't see him as the guy. What do you think about Monroe Freeling and the Freeling bandwagon lane?
Well, I necessarily don't disagree with you. Yes, he has tremendous upsides. Yeah, he has good athleticism. He's got good feet. He's got good hips. His base is good, but he also needs work, and he doesn't have a ton of experience. And when you're picking 6, you want that guy that you just know. There's a difference of, we think we can do this, and we think this, and we think that, or you just know. And I don't get that feeling from what I see and from what I hear that he's in that category. Could he end up being there? Sure, but it's just going to take some time. And I believe that there's offensive tackles in this draft that are just as good today, if not better, who potentially have a higher upside. Especially guys who are coming from the right side and going to the left. Mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily buy into all that. I don't see that happening. I'd be surprised right now. Maybe something will change here in the next couple of weeks that'll make me think differently, but that's not where I see it going. Not with that specific player. Not at 6.
I wouldn't categorize him as boom or bust. I think he's just developmental. He's started 17 games. To his credit, the last part of this year was his best. You'd like to be able to project that forward, but you can't guarantee that. He's going to have to, if you draft him, he's got to see Myles Garrett every day in practice. Like, that's a very humbling experience. So my biggest issue with Monroe Freeling on the theoretical basis of taking him is if he doesn't develop as fast as you hope, the guys who are picking him may not be here when he makes it. And that's a real thing that they have to consider. I think Spencer Fanow is a better player right now. I think he's a better athlete. I'm not going to get caught up in 1/8 of an inch on his arm length. The way he plays, I think he moves like a rugby player, which he's just different than everybody else. It's so easy for him athletically. I think for what I believe the Browns want to do on the offensive line, you put him on the left side. If they want to run zone, backside cutoffs, second level on the trap, he's a dream. He's an explosive play waiting to happen in the run game. And he played whatever you want to say about any of these guys. Spencer Fanow plays offensive line the way you want a guy to play offensive line. He hates the opponent between the whistles. He springs off the ball. He can't wait to be there. Enthusiastic player, the type of guy. Like, if I could, I'd get 7 Spencer Fanows and put them on offense and just put them from one tight end to the other, and I'd kick everybody's ass because that's just the way he's wired. But people get caught up in measurements and stuff, and that's fine. Maybe he's never going to be an all-pro because his arm length isn't long enough. But, the guys I listen to know offensive line play, Joe Thomas, LaCharles Bentley, they don't care about this stuff. They're only worried on how the guy plays. Now, I'm not going to say what they think about Fanow specifically because I don't know, but just on this notion of, well, you have to have super long arms. Feet are ultimately what's more important. Fanow's got great feet, great effort, and just the way his attitude is fantastic. Now, I'm in the camp with Lane in terms of I don't think Monroe Freeling should be there at 6. If they trade down, it could be a different story because now the draft is completely reframed. But the difference between the top tackle, whoever you think that is, and I don't think it's Monroe Freeling right now, and tackle 5 is probably not that big. And I'm still waiting to see what the official age is for a guy like Max Ahanachor. But I love the way that kid plays too. And here's the thing. My whole thing with offensive line play is people need to reframe how they think about offensive line and tackle in particular. Everybody has to be good at pass protection. There is no place you can have bad pass pro because the opponent will put somebody very good there and they will eat you alive. But how you want to build your running game may be dependent on a lot. So if the Browns want to be a right-handed offense, which I think they do, And if they draft a guy like Max Ahanichor, who seems like a dream in terms of like project tools, the ability to play zone or gap, I would leave him on the right side and move Titus Howard to the left side because I think Ahanichor could be a big time player over there. Or
Very coachable.
if, and I don't think this is where the Browns are going to go, but we'll see. If they were to take somebody like Francis Mauigoa, I would want him on the right side because that's going to be, my point of attack player. I want him leading the charge everywhere because if I'm going to have a tight end on the right to be the strong side, I want my best point of attack player over there every time. This is why I find it very strange that the Lions are talking about moving Penei Sewell, unless they want to reframe their whole offense and put their tight end on the left. If they want to do that, great. I wouldn't do it. If my offense is geared to the right, I want to put my best point of attack player there all day long. And that's why Mauigoa is really intriguing to me, as on the right side.
Yeah, there's that when you talk about Fano, there's a couple of things that people bring up. They bring up the arm size, and then they bring up the fact that he would go from right tackle to left tackle. Some people even have him classified as a center. Lane, do you believe that he comes in here and he plays left tackle, he makes that position transition effectively and could be, a force in year one?
Well, it depends on what they're going to see when they get him in here if they select this guy and see how he fits in. He has the talent to do so. He is, in my opinion, in this draft, the most natural type offensive lineman. I mean, meaning that he has those attributes that he could play various positions. I could see him being on the left side just as well as the right. I can see him playing guard, and I could see him playing center. I think that this guy just has those qualities that you look for. And, yeah, do I think that he could be a left tackle? I don't have too many reservations in my thoughts that he couldn't come in here and play left tackle. Like any other guy that's in this draft who's maybe projected ahead of him, below him, there's always going to be that learning curve. They're going to take their lumps. It's going to happen. But the only thing is that when you come to him, just like Pete said, I want my best guy. If that guy's a right tackle and he's going to solidify that right side and make that side even stronger, which we believe the Browns are going to be a right-handed team, then you may not want to move him to the left side. You may want to move Howard over there. So it's going to be an interesting puzzle to see what Warhop has to work with once they get into camp.
Right. Like the thing with Fano that people don't understand is when you watch Utah, they put him wherever they were going. So if they're going to go to the right, they put Fano on the right. They're going to go on the left, they put Fano on the left. They put him where the action was because he was that good. And that's why I would take 7 of them. I would throw that kid the ball. I have no problem with that because he's that athletic. Like, watch him move. He's different than everybody else. It's just effortless. So this idea, well, he can play center. Yeah, he can play basically anything on the field you want. And the team that sort of stands out to me is like the last true left-handed team where you sit there and look at him and you go, yep, I totally get it. Is Seattle Seahawks when they had Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson and the crew. Yeah, I totally get why you're a left-handed offense. That's makes all the sense in the world. You had 2 all-pros on the left side run behind them. But unless that's your setup, and if the Browns want to do that, so be it. But that's where I think that they are more inclined to be right-handed. So many teams, especially if you're a right-handed quarterback, love the ability to do that little play action, little dump off to the tight end behind, the second level defender, all that stuff. Yep. A bit different when you're trying to do that the other way. Not to say you can't do it, but it's just a choice. So that's where I sort of look at and go, my best point of attack player, I'd like them on the right side.
Do you think, if you bring in a guy like Fano, you've got a tremendous amount of flexibility, with where you can put him, where you can put Jenkins, move these guys around. Do you think Warhawk would take advantage of that, Lane, or am I just sort of interspersing component parts that shouldn't be moved around?
No, I agree with you there. I believe that Warhop, they have a task that they've set up. You can see what they did in free agency. They've got guys that had the versatility to move them. They haven't committed themselves, locked themselves down into anything. And I like that. I like building your team that way when you got component pieces that you have the ability, the versatility to move players in the position of strength. So for me, I like the position the Browns are sitting in because the tackle group, the difference from 1 to, say, 6 is minuscule to me. So I think that the opportunity for them to be able to do things in that realm is going to give them the opportunity to get a guy, if they don't go at 6, that they can make a move on a bit later and still have a quality type player. But, I'm in the Fano camp. I like a guy that I know that I could probably start anywhere and not have such an issue with it.
Plus the flexibility, to Lane's point, if they sit there and look at Howard as a movable piece, it opens up your options. Blake Miller's probably not a guy I'd want on my left tackle, but if the Browns like him, and I get it, he's started something like 53 games, tough kid, never misses anything. From Strongsville, nice little bonus, I guess. But if you're sitting there and you go, well, we really like this kid, but we can't get him because we have Titus Howard, nonsense. You move Titus Howard to the other side, put Blake Miller at right tackle, and off you go. Same thing with Hanachor. It just opens up your options. So now, this the scare tactic, which I don't think is going to work on the Browns, is that, well, that so many offensive linemen are going to go in the first round. But I think if you do this and you're smart in how you do it, I think they're going to have about 7 options in those 24 picks. I think they'll be pretty comfortable getting at least somebody they're really good about. And if they have to, they can always move up a little bit from 24 if they had to. I don't think they will. I just don't think the board's going to play out that way. I think more than likely, you get this talk of, well, we get these 12 offensive linemen taking the first round. You've got to account for guards and stuff. But the other part about that, a lot of the teams they're talking about are actually behind the Browns, like the Houston Texans are behind the Browns. They absolutely could use more offensive line help. But I'm just not that worried. Now, it's tough. It's easy for me. I can sit here and take that gamble. We'll see if Andrew Berry's as comfortable.
Yeah, I think that there's sort of a conflicting set of theories about Andrew Berry and the offensive tackle that he might take at 6. One is what you brought up, Pete, which is that, his seat is not necessarily as secure as he would want it to be, and he would tend to go to a safer choice than, a guy like Freeling. But at the same time, he tends to draft massive tackles, right? I mean, or bring in as free agents fairly massive tackles. And I think that leads people to believe that it might be a Proctor or a Freeling that he brings into Cleveland.
It's possible. I mean, I don't see the Caden Proctor fit. Certainly not at 6 anyway. 24, it's interesting, I suppose. But nevertheless, like the stuff that it seems like the Browns want, I don't think Proctor fits. But the other part about this is a lot of this comes down to, what does Todd Monken really want to do? My guess is he wants, best as I can see, and he sort of hinted at this, he wants to be able to do both gap and zone stuff. He wants to be able to get in power alignments when he wants to, which is why he's talking about the fullback, but he wants to be able to run zone because that just gives you a lot of options in how you do things. So that's going to change how you do that, how you operate. Caden Proctor, to me, is not a great fit for zone. I don't think he's going to get there on the backside cutoff. I don't think he's going to get there to the second level to take out that guy. Not only that, but I just get worried about guys that are that big and the amount of pounding they're going to take on their joints. We've seen it with DeJuan Jones. Not that means it can't happen. There are guys that have done it. Jonathan Ogden is certainly one of them. But I think the combination of athleticism and strength is certainly important, as illustrated by the guys they've acquired. Zion Johnson is like, they've obviously got to get a lot out of him, given the pay, and he hasn't delivered on it. But in terms of tools, he's got everything. So he's got the ability to be a power player. He's got the ability to be his own player. I think those are the guys they want. Monroe Freeling certainly qualifies if he can, develop and become that player. But Spencer Fano can do that. I think Caleb Lomu can do that. It's going to take a little time with him. He's got to get a little meaner. But a lot of that's going to come in weight room and continue to grow. These guys are 21. They're going to fill out a little bit. But there are guys, like, that's why a Hanachor is really attractive, because if you can get through and if you go on the knocks on him, the first one that people are going to freak out about is penalties. You got a lot of them. But he's only played 3 years of football. He's got great feet and has the demeanor for it. It's entirely a question of how long do they think it can take him to be ready? Because I think he can do everything you want, which is why he's super attractive. Those guys who bring the necessary mindset of wanting to dominate the opponent and put people on the ground is certainly, I think, going to make up for a lot.
I think that's going to fall into the category too when we talk about offensive linemen when you're looking at guard, because there's a sneaky suspicion that they're gonna select a guard. One of the things Monken, when he came in here, there's a temperament that was within this offense for offensive linemen, that it was very reserved. It was laid back. It wasn't vocal or physical or demanding. And I think that's something you're going to see a change. You're definitely going to see it with Warhop, because Warhop don't play that. They're going to get after people, and that's when you're looking at the situation that they have across the offensive line, and you got a Zach Zinner who just has never became the same guy he was at Michigan before he was hurt. And you look at a guy like Rutledge, who's going to be available, who's just downright nasty.
He's a prick.
Nasty. And I think these are the things that you're going to see. You're going to see that subtle change in what this team is. It's going to go away from that, just walking away from things, and they're going to make their point. You're going to understand what it is to play football in the trenches, and that's where Monken wants to, have that ability, the zone read, but he wants to be able to just It's going to be interesting to see how this all comes together for a first-time head coach who's done this for a very long time, with an experienced offensive line coach who's well-respected, and the talent that they brought in. Because if you look at the free agents that they brought in, they fit into that mentality. So it's going to be an interesting thing. But I expect them also to seriously consider the guard situation with a guy who can get down and dirty inside and move.
Keelan Rutledge is a lot like what I'm talking about. Yeah, he's a mean, nasty prick who can kill people on double teams and all this stuff. There are all kinds of awful things I can say about him that are absolute praise in terms of how, because he hates the opponent. He will flat out tell you, I hate the guy across from me the entire game. He's also a 7.5 3-cone guy. Like, he's athletic. He can pull. He can do all the stuff that you want. Like, a quick comparison is, think what Wyatt Teller was when he first got here, and he was killing people on that wide trap. That is what Keelan Rutledge does. And the thing, I'm very curious to see how this plays out, because and I sort of wrote about this notion of 39 being a very weird place to own a pick. I would not be shocked if, one, the Browns trade out of that pick one way or the other. But if they don't trade out, or they move back slightly, if they don't just say, screw it, the margin between this player and this player is pretty thin, and they basically just say, you know what? We love this kid so much, we're going to take a guy like Keelan Rutledge at 39 and say, I don't care what the board says. This is what we want to be. This is who we are. And we're going to get this guy to completely change the offensive line. Rutledge has some issues in pass pro he's got to figure out, but I think that will be fine. But you cannot you cannot get guys that just their genetic disposition is to hate the opponent, plays hard, plays nasty, physical in the run game. And if you're trying to instill that attitude, wouldn't shock me if the Browns were like, screw it, we'll take him at 39.
Yep.
Well, let's talk a little bit about trading picks, because we've got a question here in chat that I think is very pertinent. Earlier this week, Mary Kay Cabot, in her Hey Mary Kay column, attacked the issue of what is a successful trade down for the Cleveland Browns. And she said something that I agree with, which is that it's a home run if you can get a 2027 first-round pick. I just think that those are going to be exceptionally hard to come by. And Sayan has a similar question. He asks, how important will it be to have 2 first-round picks in 2027 after this draft? And I could not fault Andrew Berry if he, in fact, deals in such a way to get us another 2027 pick. I just think they're going to be gold. Lane, you have any thoughts on this?
Well, sure. Anytime that you going into the draft and you can deal down a little bit and obtain a first-round pick for the following season is always a goal that you would love to have. I mean, it's no secret. It's going on. It's going on here. So sure, but you don't want to put yourself out of position for a player that you have on your board at the highest level. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, we know Andrew Berry. We know he likes to wheel and deal. We know that they like accumulating direct selections. So no, it wouldn't be a surprise at all when they trade down and come up with another first, because right now people are saying now people aren't going to trade first. They value those picks too much for the following season. There's always players that teams just at the last minute they just can't live without. They got to go after and try to get them. Opportunities are going to be there to do this. Andrew Berry knows it. The rest of the league knows it. At some point, there's going to be that opportunity. Is it worth the squeeze? We don't know, but the opportunities always happen.
You have to play the board as it is. I mean, they can't go in with a mandate of we have to get a 2027 first round pick. It's not reality. And there may be teams that are just unwilling to do it. And may even the prices might be lower in terms of acquisition relative to move within this draft. But if the opportunity comes up and they go, you get a team that's desperate, and I'm hoping James Gladstone is on the horn and waiting to just do something stupid, that's fine. Great. We'll take another pick. Or, what we saw from the Atlanta Falcons trading up to get James Pierce. You never know when that opportunity is going to come out, but all Andrew Berry can focus on is I have to make the most out of this draft. I have to make the most of my at-bats in this opportunity, these swings I have. Yes, from the standpoint of his job security is theoretically not as sound as it was before, though I think he's probably safer than a lot of people would like. But more importantly, he's just got to do well relative to the opportunities he has. So if there's a great move to be made, fine. If there's not enough to make a trade from 6, take the player you want. Don't get caught up in this theoretical, well, we're trying to do A, B, and C, and we're worried about the 2027 quarterback. You got to get through 2026 before 2027 even matters.
We're just talking about situations where people are trying to create what could be great content. We all know how this works. Anybody who follows the National Football League, follows the Cleveland Browns, knows what the MO is here with trying to achieve and gain those draft selections. And we come right down to one thing. Your head coach wants to win now. It's obvious your owner wants to win. You're not just going to go make dumbass trades to make them. If there's enough value, and I mean enough value, not just some minuscule, sliver, there has to be real value for them to do something to move out of an opportunity this year, because there's a lot of players in this draft that they do like. So, right now, it's the easiest thing to say. I mean, somebody who doesn't know football says, hey, if I can make a move 3 inches over and I can get another one of these high picks next year to do it, would you do it? Come on, anybody knows that the answer is yes. So you play your board and what's going on right now. You construct your team. If the opportunity arises, then you get involved and you jump at it.
Right.
I think in terms of maximizing leverage, I think the best possible scenario for the Browns is that either Reuben Bain or David Bailey is sitting there when they're on the board. If that happens, I think the Browns will get a phone call. I think somebody will offer something nice. Will it be a 2027 first rounder? Unclear, but those are the two guys where I think Keldrick Falk is a better player than a lot of people do, but the difference between Reuben Bain and David Bailey to then Keldrick Falk, Akeem Mesidor, and the next group of guys is pretty substantial. So going from that cliff, if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're sitting there, we feel bad because we gave up Micah Parsons and we want to get another guy. We just tried to trade for Max Crosby for some god-awful reason. I have no idea what the process was there, but we feel like we've got to go get a pass rusher and we're desperate. Great. The Browns will happily take that phone call, but those are the two players I think make the most sense for that. I'm not as convinced, though I'd love to be proven wrong, that if Caleb Downs is there, that somebody will trade up major assets for a safety, or if Jeremiah Love's there, that somebody's going to trade major assets up to get a running back. I think it's got to be a premium position.
All right. E. Gillen says, just our luck that Browns 2026 first rounders will not produce the expected blue chip players from last year. Do you agree with that, Lane? Do you think the 2026 draft is particularly, weak compared to other years? I know we always look forward a year and think, oh man, that's going to be the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But 2026, there seem to be some, very capable players for the Browns to pick. It's just that I'm not sure that there's a slam dunk at number 6.
Well, I wouldn't say that this lacks expected blue chip players. I would say that the scale is more balanced. And I would also say that the Browns' 2 first-round picks, if they would sit and hold at 6 and 24, will be players that should be able to come in here and have an impact. And I would expect that. I would expect that from Andrew Berry, and I would expect that from this coaching staff. Also being said that the pick at 39 will likely be at a position that they need. So you have the ability to potentially see your first 3 picks playing a vital role early. So I don't know if I would go that far and say that this draft is weak or lesser than a lot of other ones, because I think there's a lot more balance in this draft than we've seen in some others, especially in the offensive line.
Well, for a lot of this is eye to the beholder. It's not as consensus driven as far as blue chip guys, but like I have no problem taking Mekhi Lemon at 6, in part because I think he has all pro upside, and the numbers demonstrate that in terms of production. He has produced like historically all pros produce. He's athletic enough to be an all pro. So whether or not he's going to reach that outcome ultimately remains to be seen. That's the case with a lot of these guys. There are a lot of guys who sort of hit those marks. They could produce super high outcomes. Casey Concepcion is certainly in that group, and there's a lot of people who don't like him because he drops the ball. So we'll see. But offensive line's way more difficult because theoretically Monroe Freeling has massive upside based on athletic measurables, because there isn't really a way to sort of truly quantify offensive line production. But nevertheless, the possibility exists that he could reach that level. You probably guess that he won't, simply because the guys that do were really that guy at some point in college. They didn't just magically become that guy once they got to the NFL. But I think this is one of those things where we'll see. This is probably going to be a draft where in certain positions it could be like 2013, which is obviously a draft that lives in infamy. But like, still found a way. Good teams still found a way to make picks in that draft class count. I think this class has more talent than that class did, but it's all about making those picks count. Those players obviously reaching whatever their potential is.
We talk about offensive linemen. We can just look to a year ago. New England selects an offensive lineman at what, number 4?
Yep.
Campbell. Where would you think that these guys who are in this draft upcoming rate compared to him? Most have longer arms. Most have dynamic physical abilities, strength. So the odds are that you're gonna select a lineman, even if you select one at 24, or if you move it here, you're still gonna get a guy that will fit the criteria that you have. I think that just the offensive line in general is deep from 1 to 25. That makes this draft very interesting, and I think the wide receivers are a little bit more interesting than what people want to look at too when you look at those first 5 or so maybe. And then you got a guy like Ted Hurst, who some people love, some people hate, and some people just don't know about. I know a team that likes him, and we'll leave it as that.
All right, fair enough. Let's go to a couple of points that I wanted to talk about today. First one, Pete, did you see the Athletics top 100 selections in the draft and who they had the Browns picking?
I did not.
Well, you missed out because they have them picking Maui Noah at 6, and they have Mekhi Lemon dropping to 24, and the Browns getting him at 24. And to me, that would be almost an ideal draft. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, it'd be great. I know there are a lot of people who don't think Maui Noah is a lock to be a tackle, which I think I like him better at tackle than a lot of people do, but so much it depends on your scheme. But I'd be thrilled with him as a guard too. Like if he can be a bulldozer, you're going to be happy with that for multiple contracts. But yeah, I mean, I have no idea where Lemon's going to end up. All I can track are his visits, and his visits start as early as 6th pick and go I think 5th pick, and he's through like the teens. So there's clearly enough people who are not convinced he's going to last to 24 that they're trying to get a sense of this guy. But look, that's a dream come true to be able to get players, because I think Maui Noah is similar attitude to Fano. He's another guy. I love his quote. There's 5 positions. I'm going to get one of them. Yeah, that's particularly for what the Browns are trying to do with this group, where they've got 3 guys that have come in that seem to have the same attitude: Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins, and Titus Howard. They're basically like, just tell us where we're going to go. Elton Jenkins' whole thing was like, just figure out where we're going to go. Don't move us around after we figure that out, and let's get going. Great. If you can find a spot for Maui Noah and he could be an enforcer up front, would love that. But yeah, Mekhi Lemon, I don't know how else to sell this kid. The number, look, he averages over 3 yards per route for his career against man and against zone. That puts him in a category with the Jamar Chases, JSNs, and a bunch of other very, very elite company. He destroys zone, which is what so many teams are running now, but he can also beat man coverage. More than anything, you watch the kid play. He plays the way people claim they want guys to play football.
Yep.
He plays a lot like Harold Finn and Quinshon Judkins, which is he makes people hate tackling them.
He plays bigger than his size.
Yeah, he plays bigger than his size. He was consistent. The Iowa game, I know people talk about this. The Iowa game is incredible, not only because the catch is big. It's raining. Like, you can't really tell, but you look in the crowd, everybody's in ponchos. He's doing all this in the rain. He also returned kicks and punts, just because any way to get this guy the ball, he just absolutely kills people. The other part that I can't help but point out, even though it's a little unfair, is he has the same amount of catches and yards against Ohio State as Omar Cooper does, despite the fact that Mekhi Lemon has never played Ohio State.
All right. You got any comment on that, Lenny, or you want to take on the next topic?
Just go to the next one.
All right. Well, here we go. Defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence demanded a trade earlier today. And Jeffrey wants to know if we'd be interested. And tell me what the cost is, I guess, before I tell you if I'm interested.
That's the Pawn Stars, meme, 5th round pick, best I can do. He's a phenomenal player. He's the best nose tackle in football. He's absolutely killing people. He's way better than I ever thought he was going to be coming out of college. So he proved me absolutely dead wrong. The Browns don't have the assets to do anything with this move. The Giants are, if the Giants actually move him, and I'm not saying they will, because the one thing they actually have is the defensive line. They're getting assets to rebuild a football team. Well, the Browns are trying to build a football team. Like, the last thing they need to do is chase another premium defensive lineman. I mean, don't get me wrong. Myles Garrett, Dexter Lawrence, Mason Graham, down the line, it'd be a whole lot of fun, but they have to get something else at another position at some point on this football team.
Yeah. Well, certainly, I mean, it all depends on the price. I mean, absolutely interested in them. But it all depends on what they expect. And the expectation here is that they're going to want quite a great deal for him.
I assume it's in the realm of like Micah Parsons and those type of deals, because he's that good.
Right. Absolutely. Jeffrey Champion also says, I really like Chris Pizzella. If he's there at 39, I'm taking him. Are you in that camp, Pete?
No, I don't want him at 39. I don't want him at 70. I don't want him at 107. And the reason is Chris Pizzella serves a very useful purpose. He's 6'5", he's almost 200 pounds, and he runs really fast, and he's a deep vertical threat. Great, but I don't want to spend assets on a thing the Browns got last year for free, and Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond is not 6'5". He's not as big, but if he can run vertical routes, stretched field, and potentially make plays. And the few times that the ball was thrown his way, he made an impact, even with Shedeur Sanders. So they got that guy. And again, I didn't agree with this assessment, but there were people saying, Isaiah Bond's a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, whatever. third round pick felt really rich to me. To me, he's basically very similar to Chris Brazil. Brazil started his career at Tulane, was okay, was outproduced by another guy named Lawrence Keys. I don't know what he's doing at this point, but nevertheless. Then he transfers to Tennessee. He doesn't do anything last year, and then he has a good year this year. He has the phenomenal game against Georgia, and watching him against Georgia, I was really excited. I was right there with you. 186 yards or something like that. He goes off. But the problem is that was his whole season. It just nothing else came of it. So there's a lot there, but he's very similar to Dante Thornton, the last Tennessee receiver who fit into this sort of mold, who hasn't done much yet. Cedric Tillman was way more polished as a receiver. But the other one, the other Tennessee receiver that ended up with the Giants, who has done nothing, it could work. I don't think the Browns have the quarterback for Brazil right now. I think if he could be what Brashad Perryman was in his brief, very fun run with the Browns, a team would be thrilled to have that. It's just not for me.
Right. Okay, fair enough. I don't have a strong opinion on that one. What I do have a strong opinion about is Ty Simpson going in mock drafts to the Cleveland Browns with the rationale they can't pass on a quarterback. They've got to take a quarterback if there's one available to them. I think we've got 3 quarterbacks, none of whom are outstanding, in my opinion. And I think Ty Simpson would fit nicely into that group as a 4th. I am not convinced that he is the guy, but that's based on just watching him in games relevant to Ohio State. I haven't watched tape of every single game. We do get a question here about if the Browns take a QB, who are you impressed by? And the writer says he likes Sawyer Robertson, think he's a great fit. What do you think about that, Pete? Is there a quarterback out there you'd like to grab? I know we've talked about this before, but say day 3.
I am interested in the guys who are going to be not picked until after the draft, mostly. And like the argument I made at the time, and continue to believe, is I think the difference between guys who are going to go in round 4 to undrafted is small. So, given that the Browns already have 3 quarterbacks, to your point, if I don't have to use an asset to get a guy that's basically going to be a swing, why don't I wait till after the draft, get somebody like, let's use Strand, the kid from Moore State, as an example. People are excited about him because he's a big, strong kid, moves around well. He wasn't invited to the combine, which suggests that the NFL is maybe more inclined to let him go undrafted, particularly when you wait against this quarterback class. Great. That's a guy I would bring in because I think Todd Monken wants a big kid who can move. If I get him after the draft, great. The marginal difference isn't going to cost me a draft pick. And if he can't play, I can cut him or put him on the squad and not lose any sleep over it. Ultimately, I don't want to use assets on this quarterback class if I can help it. I've said, and I continue to believe, that if they want to take one around 5, so be it, or later. But I think they're going to be heavily involved in the 2027 class. So why do I want to already skip out in some ways on the guys they already picked and not use a pick on a player that could maybe help those guys or the guy they would be adding next year?
Just a follow-up from our correspondent here. He says, in the event that Shadur gets hurt or fails, the Browns will need someone. Watson can take hits, and Gabriel is trash, is his opinion. I mean, Gabriel now is being talked about as, last year a 3rd-round pick. This year, a guy who might help you move up in the 6th round in exchange for him. His value has plummeted. Do you think that's fair, Pete, that his value is so low that people are talking about, moving up or down in the 6th or 7th round in exchange for Dylan Gabriel?
No, but it's what happens, and this is why I don't want Drew Allar. Because you take a quarterback, you put him on a rookie quarterback, you put him on a bad team, he struggles, and then you think he sucks forever, and then you want to do the same thing over again with another kid. Well, but I know this kid, he put him in Medina, and if he sucks, or as I referenced earlier, Quinshon Judkins, well, we're apparently done with him because we're going to move on to the next one. Like, this is sort of what happens. I think Dylan Gabriel can come back in this camp and play much better than he did last year. He can't play much worse. Hopefully, the Browns will have a better team around him, and it will lift everybody up. But
Mhm.
If Dylan Gabriel was in this draft class, I think he's got as good of an argument to be quarterback 3 as anyone, because he's got a better resume than the likes of Garrett Nussmeier. He played for 3 different colleges. He played at a high level. He had a really good career, basically the same age last year that Nussmeier is this year. He's short. You know who's also short? Garrett Nussmeier. He's not very tall either. And Garrett Nussmeier actually weighs less than Dylan Gabriel. So there are a whole lot of Dylan Gabriels in this class. So it's quite possible that Dylan Gabriel just can't play dead. That happens. It has happened before. But I'm not going to write him off and go, well, he can't play forever, but he couldn't play on a very, very bad Browns team, because I'm also not convinced that had Shador gone in first and sucked, that Dylan Gabriel wouldn't have come in and played better at the end of the year with more time and everything else. So we shall see. I think it's silly to essentially write these guys off so quickly, but people are more than happy to do it.
Yeah, well, especially in Cleveland. That was one of my concerns about Freeling earlier, is that he comes in, he has to learn, he has to be developed, and people jump to the conclusion that he stinks after 1 year. Another question, this one from Darko Petrovic. What's your opinion on Ted Hurst? What's your take on him?
Ted Hurst is a very clever element of branding. And what do I mean by that? Ted Hurst has a worse drop rate than Concepcion, but you never hear that about Ted Hurst. You only hear that about Concepcion. Concepcion is the drops guy. Ted Hurst dropped 7 balls this year. He's got like a 9.7 career drop rate. I only say that because it's reality, not because I don't want him. And I like Concepcion too. But this is the thing. You have to offset or think of this in terms of playmaking ability. Both Hurst and Concepcion make plays. Hurst is tall. He's got good size to play on the outside, 4.3 speed, and it translates. You can see Hurst's speed on the field. When he's got the ball in his hands, it looks great. He does have to figure out some answers for press. He hasn't really done that well. I do like the fact that he showed up to the Senior Bowl and looked really good when he got an opportunity against better competition. He got a few opportunities at Georgia State to play some real teams. Didn't do a whole lot against Ole Miss, but he beat the crap out of Vanderbilt twice. Helped Georgia State upset Vanderbilt last year, the year before. There's a lot to like about him. I think my suspicion is he will probably end up going earlier than I would be necessarily comfortable with. Like, for example, it would not shock me if Ted Hurst ends up going in the 2nd round, just because everybody sees the same thing. They go look at this guy and go, man, he's big, he's strong, he's got all these tools. And people sort of bid themselves into having to take him earlier than they want. I think once you get to the 3rd round, you're fine. He's got again, we talked about this. I talked about this with Kyle Lemon. Like, there's an upside where Hurst could be a very, very good receiver for your team. There's also a very low floor. He could be a complete whiff. There's just a very wide range of outcomes with Ted Hurst. I like the player. I don't know anything about the kid. But yeah, he's really, really talented, had a great season, has had a really strong draft process.
Right. All right. Well, let's change topics again here. Martin Emerson went down to Houston today, where he talked with them. I thought the going theory about Martin Emerson is that in order to reestablish his value as a quarterback for the free agent market, he's going to have a chance to start. Not sure he would get that in Houston. Do you think that over time he might be willing to accept a role like he would have here in Cleveland, where he would be behind Ward and Campbell?
I think the fact that he went to Houston increases the chances that he comes back. Because, yes, it would. If you're Martin Emerson, seemingly you want to get on the field. And the Houston Texans have Stingley, who just signed a lucrative contract. He's not going anywhere. They have Jalen Petrie in the slot, who's, my comparison for what Caleb Downs would be if you drafted him. He's phenomenal at that job. He's on a big contract. They drafted Kamari Lassiter in the 2nd round in the 2024 draft. So if you are Martin Emerson, your path to the field is beating out Kamari Lassiter. I don't know how likely that is. So by taking that visit, it would at least suggest that the possibility exists where Martin Emerson is okay with signing somewhere that doesn't necessarily guarantee him a starting job. Now, he may be going to Houston and saying, hey, what are you guys interested in offering me? And maybe he's going to get an offer. I would guess that he will then take that contract offer back to the Browns and see if they will beat it or match and go wherever the best situation for him is. One, he's got a really good relationship with the Browns. They really like him. Maybe he likes Houston and would prefer that. But, there's one fundamental truth, which is that if anyone's like me, they hate moving. So a lot of people are just content with staying where you're at if you can make it work because moving sucks.
Yeah, it does. I've been in the same house for 30 some odd years now and have no intention of leaving as long as I'm able to climb stairs, which should be another year or two. I tell you what, we haven't talked about quarterback very much other than an aside, slandering Dylan Gabriel. I thought I got the sense this week based on leaks to the media or what I saw in the media that the Browns are backing off a little bit from the Deshaun Watson enthusiasm. I don't know if you got that sense at all, but sort of, correcting course again after Haslam's statements a couple of weeks ago. And just, I got the impression that the message we're getting now is less that, Watson has a really good chance to start and more, we'll take a look at him. See if he can fight his way into contention. That's the impression I'm getting right now. Did you pick that up as well, or do you think that the Cleveland Browns are going to be really seriously looking at him for starting reps?
Well, based on what Todd Monken said, it seems like their thumb is slightly on the scale, which I approve of. Which is to say that he said we're not going to divide up the reps evenly, and last year is going to have an impact on where we start. Well, Deshaun Watson didn't play last year, so I suspect he's going to be behind in that. So it would seemingly lean towards the two rookies, Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. And look, just from a practical standpoint, are the Browns, who made arguably the worst trade in the history of sports, going to be convinced that somehow, some way, that they are going to see enough out of Deshaun Watson to give what has been an absolute disaster for them on every single level more money and a longer contract? Like, before, you could at least argue, despite all the headlines and everything else going on, you could at least say, well, in 2020, he was a great quarterback. You would now have the benefit of hindsight of saying he's been injured multiple times and he stunk on the field, and then said, no, give me more of that. Every incentive for them is to say, if Shedeur Sanders can win the job and look good, we're going to give him every opportunity to that. And then Dylan Gabriel. And maybe there's another quarterback they add that they can add that's in that mix. Because there is a world you can at least envision, and you may have to squint to do it, where Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback of the football team in 2027. Do I think that's necessarily likely? But it's a hell of a lot more likely that it's going to be him than Deshaun Watson, who you are betting on. And I will say the common refrain: three ACLs, 2 Achilles, and a completely reconstructed shoulder. It wasn't good. He's getting worse physically. Just listing off those injuries makes me stiff. I can't imagine what he's going to be like. This idea that he's going to suddenly be a mobile quarterback again, he's got to completely reinvent himself. Where at least with Shedeur Sanders, there was stuff you can point to. Yes, there's a lot he's got to improve. There's at least something there. And if it's not going to work with those guys, then you're going to look to 2027 and go get a quarterback there. You are being honest in the sense that Deshaun Watson is here. He's in the building, and you're not going to. I've always referred to this as a non-aggression pact. We are not going to pick a fight with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's not going to pick a fight with the organization, because there's mutually assured destruction on either side. So they're going to play ball to that extent, but I just don't see a world where Deshaun Watson is where they come out and go, hey, get excited for week 1 of the season. Deshaun Watson's their starting quarterback. I think it's a non-starter. And frankly, I think if Todd Monken wants to be one and done, that's the fastest way for him to start going there.
That would be very effective. I urge everyone to continue to stop by Gang of Three, one of the few places you'll hear Cold War references mixed in with quarterback talk. But that's what we do here. That's the sort of expertise we bring. We will be back again next week. Thank you for watching. Pete, thanks for your wisdom as always. Lane is off in some dark parking lot, standing partially behind a pillar, talking to someone in hushed tones right now. We'll see what comes out of that. And we hope to see you again next week, next Monday night, 7:15 for Gang of Three. Good night, everybody.